Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Knighted Ones podcast, episode number 5. We are the only podcast that features a former UCF National Champion, a former UCF radio host, and several other podcasters shooting the breeze and talking UCF sports. This week, I'm bringing my Big 12 energy, and the boys are going to do the same because we're popping our collars. I don't know if Josh is going to be able to do that. We'll have to see. But, you know, the only thing, in Lee Hunter's words, the only thing that cures a loss is a win. So we're going to make sure that we do that this week. And to help me do that, I'm going to bring in the team. So starting off with Josh may have his collar popped. And we're going to bring him to the stage. So, all right, let's see what happens, folks.
And we're down. How you doing, everyone?
Oh my gosh, that was terrible. Listen, all of that suspense and nothing, bro.
Well, listen. It's what it is. It's not. There's little ties at the end. You know. I mean, I
think you were bringing that K-State linebacker energy this week. So, you know.
Well, I have to put it down now. If you're going to say that.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what the linebacker core was doing this week against K-State. But we ain't going to talk about that right now. Next, we're going to bring Alan Levin into the show. Alan, welcome to the show. Let's see. Drum roll, please.
How's it going, guys?
Oh, all right.
Did a freeze pop my collar for Josh?
There we go. He's popping it. Popping it. So there's some more Big 12 Baylor energy. Let's see. And last but certainly not least, Trey Neal. Let's see how he's doing with his collar poppage. Oh, there it is. He can pop his collar as well. So, all right. So look at that. Everybody participated. Josh sort of participated.
I did. I can do it.
Yeah, you just got that floppy collar, bro. That's why you earned that floppy collar.
It's not, blame Columbia. I don't know.
Oh, boy. All right. So all that being said, it was certainly an interesting week. I got pretty close to the score prediction, but in the wrong direction. So, you know, I'm getting closer with my score predictions here. I don't know if that counts or not. It's just, you know, I want to make sure we start on the dub side with that. But let's go ahead and, you know, let's get right to it. I mean, we got the loss. I mean, and, you know, the big thing for me watching this game, it was like we played 3 quarters of solid football against the K-State. Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's the Josh Lazar. But
it's the only L we want.
Lazar. Exactly. So we're gonna. Yeah, Trey's got the right idea. We're lowering our collars until the Baylor. Yeah, this is the lowered collar look right now. So, but yeah, I mean, we played 3 quarters of pretty solid football, right? We were leading into the third quarter. I felt it. I felt the Mo, even in spite of the interception that happened. We just kind of fell apart, and it was a little disappointing, right? Just some very, very not smart football decisions that were made on the offensive side, and the defense. You know, they kind of figured some things out. They had 2 big penalties right in a row that gave them the score and took the momentum away from us. And that was really the game. You know, to me, what I'll say about this game, the K-State came prepared. They played tight and they won the game. And they did a lot of little things that I'll talk about and kind of share. But by and large, the game unfolded exactly like we said it was going to last week. Both teams did exactly what we said they were going to. We just couldn't keep up the execution against the Big 12 champion. And that's it. I mean, when I talk to people aren't upset. They aren't mad. It's not like, you know, when we were in the AAC where, you know, as soon as you lose a game, you're out of, you know, the consolation spot that the G5 gets. So, you know, I don't think everybody's as mad. I don't think they are, because you don't have to be perfect, right?
Yep.
And so for me, this was a growth game. I think Gus said it best is in his post-game presser. Yeah, he basically said, hey, look, this was a game that told us where we were at and what we need to work on. And that's 100% true. I will say this, shout out to the UCF fans who traveled. Really appreciated hearing you guys. We could hear you on TV. I didn't get an opportunity to do that. And then I'll also say this, other than the K-State fans at the end of the game, I've heard nothing but positive experiences from everybody that went to that K-State game. But I will tell you this, that last, everybody was like, why is Gus, I saw it in our text thread. Why is Gus trotting out our team and trying to score with the starters on that last possession? You know why? Because K-State brought the house against Timmy when they were already going to win the game and it was already iced on that last play. So good on you, Gus. That's the type of fire I want to see. That's what fires up a team that feels bad about where they're at, right? So good for being a good head coach. That was, for me, not quite as consequential as the Go Bone thing that old Heupel did, right? But that's the type of fire I want my coach to have. So good on you, Coach Malzahn. Thank goodness nobody got injured because that could have been bad. So knocking on big wood there.
That was my only gripe, Roger.
Yep. Yeah.
Oh, you had lots of gripes. We know you had lots of gripes.
With that was my only gripe.
Yeah.
So Trey has so many gripes this week that we built a new segment for him. Trey yells at Cloud. And as you remember on our text threads, we always talk about when Trey's silent, it's bad. And Trey was pretty silent during this game. So he's going to let it all out for you guys on that segment. So without further ado, what I'm going to do is let's go ahead and start with our text talk segment, and then we'll get right to our game review. So, gentlemen, why don't I start at the top right-hand corner? Josh Lazar, what were your two texts from our text talk thread? Remember, keep it clean.
Sure. So there was a lot of football texts, and the one that really resonated afterwards is they're GOLing us. And because what O'Leary did to Baylor, right, is almost this exact thing. Run it hard, slow down the football game, don't give them enough time to actually make big plays. And O'Leary would do this often against these like running gun RPO type of teams and did well on it. And that's exactly what they did. And yes, in our text thread, Roger was saying Gus tries to do this too, and I agree, but obviously we didn't get it done. But one of the things that was, we were talking about how we all are on different TV packages. So someone is inevitably a minute or two ahead of someone else. And Roger was ahead of everyone this game. And we were talking about how he's so far ahead. He was telling us all the things and we wanted to go back in time and maybe fix some mistakes because he was a time traveler. And I said to yesterday and pre-Tangate, because there was a whole text conversation about tanning of all things in the text chat. And that took up a lot of Roger's time this weekend. So those are some fun things I thought.
That was the reason I was not at the K-State game is we had a tanning emergency. So for those of you, and I'm not talking about myself.
You said we. You have to define we there.
Well, I'm the dad, right? So because I'm the dad, it's a we. Anything that happens to your wife, anything that happens to your girlfriend, anything that happens to your daughter, it's never a me. It's always a we. So remember that, guys. That's my parental marriage advice of the week, relationship advice. My daughter had an unfortunate experience with a tanning bottle. She bought this tanner. It's one of those chemical tanners or whatever. She'd applied the tanner. I didn't know she was going to do it. You're supposed to leave it on there for 10 minutes. Well, she left it on there for 10 minutes, and then she went to bed and fell asleep. So she knows she did not remove said tanner for 12 hours. So we spent like 8 hours this weekend trying to remove the said tan. So it was interesting. I learned all about exfoliating, sugar scrubs, and all kinds of stuff. So this was almost as bad as your best friend planning their wedding during a football Saturday. So we got it handled. She no longer looked like a bronze statue. I love my little girl, but man, do not have a tanning, a tanning problem emergency, because it will take you a long time to fix. All right, so that was it for that, Trey. Now that we've kind of gone on a complete opposite spectrum there, Trey, why don't you share what your 2 favorite texts from this week were?
Yeah, my first one is going to be kind of what Josh was talking about with Roger being ahead of us a little bit. Man, I was so excited when we scored. I think it was early in the game, our first touchdown. So I was getting ready to text like, let's go, which is what I do when I'm hyped. And I already see, Roger was like, touchdown, baby, a minute earlier. Josh is like, you're way too ahead. Okay, I'll try. I was just like, Roger's the time traveler. I was just like, holy smokes. I didn't know I was that far, behind, which, to me, it's crazy how so many different things can live broadcast. But
right?
Yeah, live broadcast.
Hey, I was watching it live on cable. That was what the difference was. I wasn't streaming it.
Yeah,
that was what the difference was.
That's the thing. It's got to be the cable will get you right ahead. And then my second one, where is my second one?
I feel like he's scrolling.
He is, and he's furrowing his brow. For those of you that are not watching right now, he looks like he's trying to read an offensive scheme right now. His brow is completely furrowed. He's very.
So it was my second one is what I said. I said we couldn't stop the football if our life depended on it, and yeah, we'll get to that part later. That we'll talk about that.
Yeah,
just to save it.
Yeah, I think that's good. All right. Alan from Smarty Pants Marketing. I think you got the wrong background this week.
That's I do. You're right. Didn't even notice that.
Wow. With a Z, folks. With a Z. If you listen to our other show, it's Smarty Pants with a Z.
Just get a pillow and make a subtle 18-inch pillow in their background.
Yeah, I'm on this podcast twice a week, so it's always switching between.
You're not on this podcast twice a week. You're on this podcast
with Mr. Roger twice a week.
There you go. All right. Go ahead, the stats guy.
So both of my text talks actually came from Roger. One was leading our first ever Big 12 quarter. Do we make a shirt? Good subtle dig at USF there. Always good to make a dig at the Cows. And then the next one was Hinshaw has been calling a clutch game. He's not intimidated, because we'll get into the offense, but I agree. I thought the offense wasn't intimidated and it played well. But we'll get more into that when we get past text talk.
They just need more opportunities, right?
Yeah.
Do what?
They just need more opportunities.
Yeah, I went back and looked at that, and actually, the plays, they were pretty close. It's just that Baylor and the time of or not Baylor, excuse me, K-State, the time of possession was actually the big difference there. UCF had the ball. Difference. They had a lot more. Yeah, they had the more explosive plays, right? But it was 25 minutes to 34 minutes, right? So there's some seconds there. That's 10 minutes of football, guys. That's a lot of offense that can happen in 10 minutes. And in K-State's case, that's a lot of 8-yard runs that can happen in that length of time. So very, very interesting stat, but time of possession was huge this week. So
that's a George O'Leary, if we're talking about that, right?
Yeah, George O'Leary for sure was all about time of possession football. The SEC is about time of possession football. Yeah. Gus, there's a reason he emphasizes on the running game. If you can run the ball, you can control the clock, right? And if you control the clock, depending on what you're doing and how the other team is playing, right? If their offense is hot, you want to limit their number of possessions focus on the turnovers, and then chew up the ground game, right? Yep. We talked about that last week. We talked about how this was going to go. And, Gus talked, or Himshaw talked about it this last press conference, where he said, sometimes you can go RPO and sometimes you can't. The defense is picking up on not RPO, excuse me, hurry up. If your defense is picking up on what you're doing, you can't play the same plays offensively again. Otherwise, it's a 3-and-out really quickly. So they were testing out and seeing what the defense was doing so they could set the schedule of plays out of a specific formation so that they can run the RPO, but they were just stopping everything. So they never found that winning combination. That's why you didn't see the hurry up offense this week, folks.
Yep.
So, just understand that they want to go fast. We talked about it last week. They want to go fast, but you can only do it if you know what the defense is doing and you find a combination that works. So, all right, Josh, I'm going to let you wax poetic here. Oh, wait, we never let you go first.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah, I can't mess up the rotation here. So I'm going to go, I think I'm going to go with Alan. Alan, why don't you fill us in on some of your observations and thoughts on the game? And we're just going to go overall. We have a whole notes, which, by the way, I missed this last week, and I apologize to Alan. Alan puts together our show notes, and he does a great job with it, spends a lot of time on it, and saves me a lot of time. So shout out to Alan. Trey never reads them. He just says whatever he thinks. So
I always read them.
What? No way. You don't even get them to your email half the time.
How do you think I got in now?
What?
I get the show notes because y'all would put it in the group chat.
We didn't put it in the group chat this week.
I know, but you sent it in the email. I got the email this time.
All right. So you guys are getting a little inside football on how a podcast is done right now. Trey doesn't get his emails. We have to send him to 30 different emails so we find the right one for him. And Alan does the notes. I set up the stream and everything else. I try to figure out what I'm doing, and I'm not sure what Josh does. So we're just going to leave it at that.
I look pretty.
Yeah, he does look pretty, except for that floppy collar. All right, Alan, it's your turn. Go ahead, man. And guys, we all have fun. We all like each other. This is just a little gentle ribbing, like you would at home with over a few beers. So please don't take it seriously. Like Josh knows I love him so much, so I do 2 shows with him a week.
I know.
So go ahead, Alan.
Most weeks.
So so look, it was interesting. Before the season, we at least I said I think there was going to be some Big 12 losses. We weren't going to come in and dominate. And out of the 9 conference games, there's 3 that UCF was considered an underdog, and one of them was this Kansas State game on the road against the defending Big 12 champions. Then about a week ago, we hear their star linebacker is out for the season. Their starting running back was doubtful and ultimately didn't play. And their quarterback, Will Howard, was questionable and banged up. And all of a sudden, the UCF fan tide and opinion of this game turned. It was like, oh, we could win this game. All 4 of us here predicted a win. Most of UCF Nation was pretty much expecting a win. And the tide turned from this game.
Let me clarify. I'm never gonna pick against UCF.
Same.
But in general, this game initially was penciled in as a loss for the most part. Maybe not from you, but for the most part it was. And then you saw the tide turn. You even saw on College Game Day, you had several experts pick UCF, and the tide all of a sudden turned, and we got, I think, in my opinion, a false sense of confidence. And then, we got into the game. We had a lead after the first quarter. We had a lead early in the third, and and by all means, it was a winnable game. But I think we got a false sense of confidence and just forgot, hey, we're going to lose some games this year, and that's okay. We were playing the defending Big 12 champions on the road, and just because they had 2 injuries wasn't going to dramatically change. Look, this isn't the American anymore. This is the Big 12. A respectable Big 12 program can withstand the loss of 2 players. They have the depth as they showed it. Their backup running back their starting running back was out. Their backup replaced him and had nearly 300 yards and 4 touchdowns. So I don't think the running back situation was too dire for them. Yeah. And then their replacement linebacker played fine too. And then Will Howard didn't look banged up at all. I mean, he had 2 rushing touchdowns, over 60 yards on the ground. He was obviously a dual threat for them. So, I walked away at the end of the game disappointed because it felt like we let a game slip away, a game that we were very competitive for really 3+ quarters. And remember, this is a 1-possession game until about 4:37 left to go in the 4th quarter. Yep. So we were in the game for the entirety of the game. And I left away walking pretty sad that, you felt, damn, we could have stole one on the road and made a huge statement, especially when the other 3 newcomers in the Big 12 also lost. But then, you wake up and you have a couple days, and then I felt a little bit better about it. I felt, damn, we played pretty well. Our offense looked pretty good. You could tell the athletes were no problem keeping up. I did not feel overmatched, overwhelmed. I didn't feel like there was a massive talent gap. Like I compared it to like when we played Michigan in 2016, they just destroyed us. Didn't even feel like we belonged on the same field. That did not feel like that this game. I felt good about this game after taking some time to digest it. It was just, our defense just made too many lapses. And our offense, Timmy made some mental errors, and we obviously had the false starts and delay of games and things like that. But overall, we were in it. It's a football game. You're going to have some mistakes. But our defense didn't make enough plays to win. But I felt really good about our offense. And I walked away also feeling good because I felt like a lot of these things were correctable. These mistakes are all correctable. So for me, it felt like we hung tough with a very good top 25 Big 12 team that beat the team that made it to the national championship last year, in the conference championship last year. So I walked away feeling a little bit better after taking some time. And we just, at the end of the day, made too many errors, but all the coaching staff talked about that being correctable. And I think we come back and are able to improve on that. And like you said, it was a build-up game. It was a game that we were, working through some stuff, and, it was a learning, ultimately apply that to the games going forward. And I think we'll be better because of it.
Well, I'll tell you this, K-State prepared for us.
Yeah.
I mean, hands down, the team was prepared. The coaching staff was prepared. And this is where I'm going to inject all the little things that they did. Okay. So they flat out lied about their quarterback.
Yeah. 100%.
I mean, that was gamesmanship. He's 50-50. If this wasn't a clean show, I'd call it gamesman Nikes. You know what I mean by that, right? Because that's what that was. But we are rated as clean for all you family guys out there. So, and gals. So I want to make sure that we don't ruin that. So that being said, if you hold your tongue and you say the word ship, you'll know what I mean. Look, they even went so far. They had a system to signal to their guys, and I don't know if K-State does this to other teams, to lay down so that they could save timeouts, right? Then they also had situations where they were leveraging the clock against Timmy because Timmy was doing his checks and getting some of his checks from the sidelines. So when we were subbing out, their big guys would wait until there was like 10 to 12 seconds left before they got off the field. The ref let them off the ball. They lined up. Then we started doing checks. All of a sudden it was 4 seconds. And I'd say there was probably at least 20 snaps where we were down both sub 4 seconds when we snapped the ball. Mm-hmm. They did that on purpose. That was gamesmanship. That was preparation. That was good coaching. Okay. These guys looked at us and they were ready to play. So good on you, coach, right? When it comes to that. And they played clean. They played clean football. Now, Alan, I will ask your opinion on this, right? Yeah, clean other than the holding, right? On every freaking snap. But let's not talk about that when, half our teams, they weren't being pancake blocked. They were being shoved down from the back or pulled down from the front on their way down. So, I will ask you this about the line play. As far as not getting to the quarterback, they had 3 knockdowns, I think is what it was, and one of them was that ticky-tack penalty for roughing the passer, which again, stupid play, but I mean, come on, refs. That being said, what did you think about the line? Did you think that they performed at that level? Were they just too small? Did they get pressures? What were your thoughts on how the line performed against a big beefy O line that was supposed to be really good this year?
Yeah, clearly their lines were a little bit deeper than ours and definitely played better than our lines. I don't think it was a dramatic, anything dramatic, but I thought our O line had some lapses, but I don't think it played. I mean, like we talked about before, Timmy had time to throw the ball. Like there was just time where he was just like sitting there and like frozen. I don't know if it was.
Bro was using the easy bake oven and cooking himself some brownies.
Exactly. So
that's what was happening.
Did he get sacked a couple of times? Yeah, I don't put that game in the O line. I mean, Gus did talk about how he'd like to have the same 5 for a consistent amount of time, which we've been switching it up there, but at the same time. The O-line coach for the season said, he feels that there is depth and he can rotate in different guys. But anyways, the O-line, but the D-line, I don't think did enough in this game. I mean, there was 1 sack the entire game. I don't know how many hurries there were or how many pressures, but there was only 1 sack.
Was it the D-line or was it the D-line physically though? Or was it the D-line with lapses on the defensive front? And I know Trey will get into this when we get into the defense, but I just want your opinion. Were we physically outmatched or we just out executed?
We were definitely out executed. There's no question about that. Physically, I did feel like maybe, I guess it's when I start thinking about the last 3 games when we were physically just so much bigger. And then you look at this game and that gap obviously wasn't there. I think they were a little bit more physical in us, but like I said, I don't think it was dramatic, but I think it was maybe a combination of both, but the bigger part was they out executed like you said. K-State was prepared for us, and I think they did out execute us. But I think a little more size on our lines wouldn't have hurt us either. So I think they did have, but it wasn't like something like, oh my God, we look so much smaller than them. Like it's a P5 versus G5 or something like that. So I wasn't too concerned. And then with all the defensive recruits we have coming in, I'm not really too concerned about that, but they were a little bit beefier, but I don't think that played a part in, completely throwing the game out of sorts for us. It was more the execution in my mind.
Okay. Trey, this is not your yelling segment, so remember that. But your overall thoughts about the game?
I thought overall we played well. I don't know if it was great. We played well. I think the score, at the end, it kind of got away from us. We were losing I think it was by 20. The game wasn't like that for most of the game. I think we lost by 13, I believe. But the game was a lot closer. It was more back and forth throughout the game, which I think that's what we all alluded to going into, Big 12 play, was that we don't want to get blown out by any team. If we lose, at least make it competitive. So I think when you look at it in that sense, I think it was competitive. Now, are there things very simple things that we messed up on? Absolutely. We messed up on a lot of simple things, a lot, over and over and over, like the corrections weren't getting fixed on the sideline. But just overall, I thought we played well. I think the offense played good. I think they played better than, how it might have came off, or maybe just the initial reaction after it. I thought they played pretty well. The defense was horrible. From all aspects. Besides the interception by Thornton, I don't think the defense played well at all. I think there were tendencies they weren't picking up on. There were gaps they weren't filling. There was a lot that was horrible. And I think that's the reason they lost, or we lost, was because of that. But overall, as a whole, I think this is what you want. This is the Big 12 now. This isn't the AAC. These games where you make mistakes over and over, you're going to lose by 20 points against this kind of competition. If you can't make simple adjustments, you will lose by 20 points. That's the league we're playing in now. As we get down the line, Oklahoma, all these teams are beatable. Let me preface it with that. I think we should have won this game. But like I said, if you give anybody chance after chance after chance after chance, and you let them beat you on one play, don't adjust. They're going to run it again. Don't adjust. That's the kind of league. They're not going to just be cute for no reason. They saw we couldn't stop the run. Keep running the ball. They saw we couldn't stop power. Keep running power. We can't stop the quarterback. We're not playing read option well. Keep running read option. It was very simple stuff. And that's what the league's going to do. They're not really going to get cute, I don't think. I think once you start getting into conference play, the league is going to be, we just need to get wins. We need to get conference wins. Because, again, now we're in you can lose games and get to the playoff. We're not in you have to be perfect. These teams are just trying to get wins. They don't care if it looks ugly. At the end of the day, they want to be 11-1, 12-0 at the end of the day and winning a conference championship because that's your best shot. And so overall, I think we played well. And I think there's positives to look at, obviously, but defensively, we'll get into that later.
Well, they were trapping a lot of our D linemen.
Yeah,
I don't know if you were watching that or not.
Yeah, they were in trap a lot.
They trapped a lot. They were
double trapping a lot.
Yeah. And then they just get that one seam, have a little delay, and then that person would pop out, whether it was, an RPO type thing or whether it was, the running back. What was it? Giddens, I think was his name.
Yep.
Yeah. And you know what? The other part about Giddens, if we could tackle for like half of this game,
we're getting into that too.
Yep. That was a big part of their success as well.
And we talked about that in the past. That was one thing I was worried about.
We talked about it last week.
Yeah. As great as we played these past 3 weeks, the one issue that I had with the defense was our tackle. And again, you get into these Big 12 games against these big teams. If you mess up those little things over and over, you're going to get beat. And I'm not saying you're not going to miss tackles because, I miss tackles. You just can't miss tackles, then the next play miss tackles, then the next play miss tackles. Like, you can't do that. You're not going to win like that.
Yeah, I think Josh was yelling at his TV screen a few times when you were missing tackles, Trey.
Yeah. No, I was not. I was yelling when he took picks in the end zone. That was good.
No, you were jumping when that happened. I think we all were. All right. Josh, speaking of Mr. Lazar, grace us with your thoughts on this game. What's your general overview?
So I can say I was standing up in my TV setup at about the third quarter. I was up and down every so often, but to me, when a game is tight, when it feels like there's some momentum and things are hanging in the balance, I don't sit down on my couch at this point. And that third quarter is kind of where I started really standing. And I think Alan or someone was saying, I don't know if it was Robert Allen, someone was like, I've been standing since the first quarter. I think if you would have told me last week that Will Howard would have played that entire game and had no running issues, I might have made a change in my score prediction. And that's part of the gamesmanship that you were talking about. So when he came out, I was like, oh, okay. And when we just couldn't stop almost anything, and we still had a chance in the third quarter, maybe going for it on 4th and 2, maybe minimizing some of
Oh my God. Yeah, let's talk about that for a second.
Sure.
Come on, Gus. It's 4th and like a yard and a half, bro. You're on the 40. It's a tight game. That's where you impose your will. Yeah, that's where you impose your will, and you take over the game at that point. Demoralize the defense. They can't stop you. Just do it. And don't do it. Don't do it with the Wildcat, right?
Yes.
Because you're trying to pull the Wildcat against the Wildcats. Yeah. That would not be okay. But seriously, bro, take the game, show the fire. Don't play it safe. And I did not like that call. And I said that in the thread too.
Yeah. Same thing. And so, we got past the momentum killer when there was a turnover at the end of the half and it didn't cause points, right? So great. And we're starting to get momentum. We're starting to go over. And you just felt like we weren't. They had 1 3 and out. We weren't stopping them. our offense can take over, let them take over. And I feel like between that and a few things, it kind of like the momentum started running out. Like we quieted that stadium in that early third quarter.
Well, we quieted them earlier than that too.
Well,
I mean, I think a lot of them were expecting, especially after they came out with a touchdown like that, made it look easy. I think they were going to run over us, but we made it look easy too. The difference was that we made a few mistakes. I felt like the defense was actually getting it together in the third. You could tell they made adjustments. They were getting those stops. And again, another opportunity, momentum. You had the 4th and 2. Then you had, 30 yards worth of penalties when you had them stopped on 3rd down.
And that was the game to me. Like at that point, it was like, we're not stopping them. We're killing ourselves. We'll talk about that in a little bit in the keys later on today, which has a certain musical flavor to it since music and football is coming together this past weekend. But that we not only did we beat ourselves, we got beaten by a very, very good team while we were also shooting ourselves in the foot. We're going to, if we continue to do that, we are going to lose games. It's going to happen. But there are definitely things that are correctable. Trey's going to talk about that and probably yelling at the cloud. But to me, I felt that we were in this game for a significant amount of time. And if we would have went back to maybe 2014, or if we would have been back to like maybe 2008, and if you would have told future you, yeah, we're going to pretty much hang in almost and be ahead of the Big 12 championship champions, the reigning Big 12 champions, and be in the same league, most of us would be kind of interested of how that happened. So to me, I'm annoyed because, like others said, I feel like we had it, or at least we had a good shot, and we just kept losing the momentum. And
all right, so look, we said the offense played fairly well, for the most part, right?
Yeah.
They had 59 snaps. Okay, 59 snaps this game, folks. Yeah. 59. Okay. Them, on the other hand, the K-State, they had, 82 snaps. Okay. So that's 23 extra snaps and 10 minutes of offense, right? That is almost half of the total snaps that we had.
Yeah.
You're going to lose football games. So the fact that the offense was doing it, I mean, and here's the difference. 10.6 yards per pass for us, 4.2 yards per rush. That's still fairly good. Yeah. It's not UCF football. That's winnable. If you can get 4 yards per carry, you're going to win games.
You should win
usually.
Yes, should win games. However, 7 yards per carry for them and 20 extra plays. That's your game, folks. That's literally the game ball. And you know what? Looking at this and looking at the stats as far as that's concerned, I was thinking about all the penalties. We had 10 for 80. They had 5 for 63. So there's only, there's not that much of a difference between the yards, but we had more called. The other thing is their quarterback, as good as everybody thought he looked, because he had some passes that were pretty stellar, he was 27 of 42. Right?
Yeah.
So he had 42 passes. He dropped back 42 times, right? And if you think about it, you look at 27 of 42, he's 64%. That's manageable, but it's not great. He didn't play that great.
And Roger, the thing is, we'll get into it more. A lot of his throws were across the middle. He wasn't taking the deep shots outside. He wasn't making throws deep outside. They were killing them inside the numbers, really barely outside the hashes, within the hashes. That's it. So to me, I'll get into it. It's frustrating that the guys aren't picking up on that. Because I played DB. Those are the things that as I'm watching the game, I see.
it's not even the DBs though in the middle of the field, because we kept rushing and we had zone that we were playing and he was picking the zone apart. And again, what did I say last week? And I was assuming he was injured. Short drops, 1 or 2 short drops, and going to zip for slants or for, across the middle of the field. That's exactly what they did to break up our rush.
Yep.
That's exactly what they did. And I knew they were going to do it. I thought they were going to do it for a different reason, but they had a tight end, right? They have a ginormous tight end, and they took advantage of that. But I will tell you this, part of this, and again, we'll get into it when Trey starts yelling at people. Part of that is our linebackers, right? If you're in a 3rd and 8 or 3rd and long or 3rd and 6 or 3rd and 10 or whatever, you have to be aware of where the sticks are. Yep. They were 4 yards in front of the sticks. Guess where every receiver is going to sit on a play like that? Just over the line to gain.
Yep.
And you know what? If he's zipping the ball out there in 2-step drops, 1-2-step drops, you're not going to get there. It doesn't matter how much faster you are than them.
Exactly.
You're just not.
Yep. And we'll get into it.
All right. We'll now I'm yelling at Cloud. But yeah, I mean, going back offensively, again, we had a fairly decent game. We just didn't have enough plays. And what we're doing this year, which I think is an offense, everybody was talking about the difference between Gus and Himshaw, right? Our average play and the number of explosive plays that we've had have gone way up this year, right? We'll throw a 40, 50-yard pass, or we'll throw a 20-yard pass that Kobe turns into 30 or 40 yards, right? Totally different than the screen game, tunnel screens and everything we were doing last year. This is totally different. So the folks that are saying, is Gus calling the plays? I think at times he might be, but this is a different offense than what it was last year.
It looks completely different, Roger. I mean, it's night and day different.
It's not a triple option, right? Or modified triple option RPO, whatever we were doing last year, right? This year, it's a play action game. There is some RPO in it, but a lot of it is play action. And when you play action, why do you do play action? You do play action to let plays beyond the line of scrimmage develop.
Yep.
Give your receivers enough time to develop. And when you do that, they're getting loose and you're passing the ball, and we're seeing it in the numbers. Yep. This is a different offensive scheme, folks. Now, Gus, I'm sure, has his finger on the trigger when it comes to some of these interesting calls. But yeah, it's different.
It's a very different scheme. It honestly, it's still very run centered, which is what Gus wants. He brings a different element to the play calling than Gus has in the past years, which is what we needed. We needed that healthy blend of each, because we still want to be a physical team that can, like we saw Boise State. Hey, if we can lean on teams to just run the clock out, let's do that. That's what Gus wants to do. But now Henshaw brings the extra element that we need of the play action game. It's not just necessarily a lot of option, a lot of RPO heavy. While we still do it, it's just not heavy. He brings that extra element in the play action game because we have the receivers to do it.
We have the explosive offense to do it. Last year, we had roughly the same number of passes, right? Which is 30%. Yeah. We're averaging 27 to 30% again this year on the mix. The difference is we're throwing them beyond the line of scrimmage 10 yards to start with, or 20 yards or 40 yards. Whereas last year, most of those were screens, right? Yep. Which are close within the line of scrimmage. And then the running back did it with his feet. So your average, number of yards per play was, 7, 6, 5 yards a play. Whereas now it's 10.6. Those are good numbers. Those are solid numbers. All right. Anything else, Trey? I'm sorry. I feel like we got on a little bit of I'm just yelling at the mic today. I don't know what it is. I'm sorry. Sorry to all of those that are listening.
Passionate fan base, right?
I think it's because the Bengals are like kicking field goals and that's all they can do.
They just scored.
LA. They finally score a touchdown?
Yeah, they scored a touchdown.
Oh, wow. That's the first touchdown, I think, between both teams. 13-9. All right. Sorry, guys. All All right. Next thing, we kind of talked about the penalties and something that I kind of want Alan to talk about here. Alan, give us a little bit of an update on Kobe Hudson. He had, he still had a whale of a game. We talked about what he was doing different. What did you see out of Kobe Hudson this week?
Yeah, I was gonna save this for the stat area, but I'll just wait. I'll just do it now. But yeah, Kobe Hudson had his third straight 100+ yard receiving game. That is the first UCF receiver to have 3 straight 100-yard games since Gabe Davis in 2019, when he did it for 4 straight games. So if Kobe can do it again next week, he'll tie Gabe Davis there for 4 straight 100-yard games. But now Kobe Hudson now ranks number 5 in the country in receiving yards and number 5 in the country in receiving yards per game. So like we talked about it, yes, it's the route running that's improved dramatically. I mean, you saw it again. I mean, he's not just falling to the ground after catching the ball. He's taking these 10-yard catches and going for, whatever it is, 20, 30, 40 yards. Right now, just about half of his yards on the season are after the catch. So about 50% of all of his yards have come after the catch. So I mean, look, Javon Baker only had 1 catch on Saturday. And look, Kobe Hudson, whether it's the double teaming on Javon and defense is keying in on him, Kobe Hudson has really taken over the wide receiver 1 role. I mean, it's not even a question, at least through first 4 games of the season. So I loved what I saw to him. I mean, he's been a big play waiting to happen on almost like every time he catches the ball. So he, to me, was the MVP on the offense against Kansas State in the loss, but he played lights out again for the 3rd straight game. I think right now he's the front runner for most improved player on the team. He's just been playing that well through these first 4 weeks of the season. And he did well. I mean, every time UCF needed a big play on offense, he was there to make that play, especially with our run game being RJ Harvey kind of looked out of sorts in this game, and our run game was not as strong as it's been through the first 3 weeks. We still average, like you said, a little over 4 yards a carry, but clearly the passing was better in this game. And Kobe Hudson was a big reason for that.
Yeah. And the big thing too, I mean, we left 10 points on the board, even with all the things that we had going on. We still left 10 points. Yeah, you're right. Missed field goal and RJ turnover. Exactly. So even with all of the things that we did wrong, with our QB looking lost there for a while, he got caught up in the moment almost, it felt like, right? He was like, things are going bad. And he just, then I feel like Timmy.
He was trying to do too much.
Yeah, well, he was trying to do too much. He was throwing the home run. He was looking for the home run pass. Yeah. He got to a point where they were behind. And I can tell you this, and I was going to bring this up too. Trey, I think you can talk about this, briefly too. When you're playing in a football game, the first quarter, you're cool, you're chill. Hey, we've got the rest of the game to deal with this. If we're not doing well, blah, 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 whatever. Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Second quarter, still the same. Hey, we're going to come out of the half. We got a whole half a game to play. Third quarter, you start getting into the middle of the third quarter and you become very aware, if you're behind, what the score is. And we weren't, right?
Yep.
Then you get into the fourth quarter, and especially when you get to about 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and if you're playing behind, inexperienced people freak out.
Yep, exactly.
And then when you do that, you overdo it. I feel like that's what we saw in Timmy this week.
That's exactly what happened. I mean, we were losing by 13 points with the ball. That's not crazy. Our offense is explosive enough. But our offense is very good. It's not like we had to get the big play now. We had time to be methodical. And you were saying it in the group, one stop, one score. That's all we needed. Like, we get a score right here. We get a stop right here. We have a chance to go down and win the game. And that's all you can ever ask for in a game, And I think, again, when you have that young quarterback, that maybe experienced quarterback who he was just trying to do too much in the moment instead of just letting it, come to him. And that's, again, that just comes with
we're just taking the smart play.
Yeah.
Right?
There were times where there were times where, if you just throw the ball away, that's better than a sack, you know?
Yeah.
And you don't have to make the splash play every play. You know, sometimes the best play is just throwing the ball away, live to see another down. And you know, it's just those little things like that, again, I think that just comes from, you know, inexperience, nerves. And again, we're humans. We know all the talk is, you know, how's Timmy going to do in his first big game? You know, he wasn't the starter, you know, it was JRP. Now he's coming in. How is he going to do? We all hear all of the, you know, all the noise about it. And again, you just have to kind of cancel it out and stick to the game plan, you know. And I think that's just an inexperienced thing. Which
hold on. I thought your team always said, you know, we don't listen to any of the noise. It never makes it into the locker room.
No. Listen, we know, we heard all of the noise. Now we didn't let it bother us. We never let it bother us, you know. But we heard everything they were saying. I mean, key game was the Auburn game. We heard that noise for a month. You know, that was it. You know, we always as athletes, you know, except like the rare athlete like an Andrew Luck who's not on any social media. You know, he just, you know, he goes plays football, he goes home. You know, he's a simple guy. But we hear everything. You know, that's the world we live in. You know, we see all the tweets that people tweet about us. You know, but it comes with it, and you know, we embrace it in the locker room and we use it as fuel. You know, just as athletes, but you can't let it, you know, overtake you to where you start playing outside of the game plan. And I think that's what happened. I'm not saying that the noise is the reason. I'm just saying it happens, you know? Yeah,
totally get it. So that was our Coogin review section. You know, when we lose, I'm going to call it the Coogin game review. And that moves us on to the defense. And, you know, obviously we've been talking quite a bit. We try to keep it a little bit more loose this time around because I think we all had a lot to say. But this is Trey's turn to try out his new segment, which was a reflection of his silence. And this is when we allow him to yell at a cloud. So I'm gonna change the banner here for you, Trey, and then. Oh boy, he's getting ready. He's getting ready. All right, Trey, I'm going to actually shut up for once, and I'm going to let you take this out, and then I'll add whatever I got to add. Go ahead.
All right. So listen,
what did you see?
If we're gonna be honest here, the defense lost us the game. I'm a former defensive guy. I've always been. If anybody's going to struggle on the field, it cannot be defense. We have too much pride to do that. Number one, our tackling is horrible. You know, I'm not saying I was the greatest tackler in the world. Listen, I've missed my fair share of tackles, but we would make adjustments on the sideline. You know, they would come up and say, hey, you're hitting them too low. That's why you're missing tackles. Okay, we're going to go a little bit higher. We cannot miss 100 tackles. We can't shoot at the legs, especially not in the Big 12. As you saw with Giddens, he's a backup. You know, he's a great backup, but he's the second string running back. He's breaking all of these tackles that you aim at the legs. That's what the best running backs do. So that's number one. Can't miss tackles. Number two, we have to realize tendencies. It looks like we have zero indication of figuring out tendencies. Like I said earlier, as a DB, if I see most of the passes are being completed across the middle, if I'm in man coverage, I'm not getting beat across the middle. He hasn't shown us that he can beat us throwing deep outside the numbers. Make him beat you throwing deep outside the numbers. That's another issue I have. Number three, our linebackers have to play disciplined football. This was simple power football, old school, get downhill. You know, if you guys can't play sound football, you can't look at your keys, read your keys. If you have the quarterback, take the quarterback. If you have the running back, take the running back. If the guard pulls, work over top. It's simple things like that in this conference, not just, you know, Kansas State, Oklahoma. They test your rules. They test, can you do great with your rules? Are you going to be sound with your rules? Because if you don't, we're just going to beat it across your head until you do it, or we're just going to beat you by 20 to 30. Like that. That's what it is. Our linebackers are all over the place. I saw guys going for the quarterback, and there was no reason to. There's two people on the quarterback. You have two people on the running back. You're not going with guard pull. Those little things will change the season from us winning the game and being, you know, 11-1, 12-0, maybe winning conference, to being 7-5, 8-4. You can lose 4 to 5 games in this conference just because you're doing what you want. We call it freelance. You're freelancing on defense. You're not playing sound. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, those are the three things. And the thing is, those three things are legitimately some of the easiest things. They weren't running some unorthodox scheme. They weren't running something that was, I've never seen an offense like this. No, there, a lot of read option, a lot of quarterback power, a lot of I formation, except it was out of pistol power, and they were saying, hey, can you guys play sound football, or are you guys going to jump around and try to do what you want to make the splash play? We try to jump around and do what we want to make the splash play. You're going to
Oh, did it freeze?
Yep, I think Trey
I
froze
froze.
there.
Can you hear me?
You're back.
Yeah.
You're back.
The cloud was yelling at you back.
Yeah. Kansas State is just as talented as UCF. Oklahoma is just as talented as us. Texas is just as talented as us. Kansas is just as talented as us. A lot of these schools are just as talented as us. The difference between these games are, can guys, one, make plays when their number's called, and two, do your job. It's legitimately that simple. Do your job. All of those things that I just went on this long rant about fall under one category. Do your job. If you do your job, everything will be fine, because we're plenty talented enough to let your talent take over once you do your job. You don't do your job, now you're relying strictly on talent, and you're going to have an issue at some point against these good teams, as we saw. My rant's over.
Wow. How do you feel?
I feel better. I was very mad. And again, I'm mad because I think that game we should have won that game. And as a defender, a guy who played defense, the one thing that I've always don't like is just freelancing on defense, because you're already at a disadvantage on defense. You're at a disadvantage with the rules. You're at a disadvantage with being able to hit people. You're at a disadvantage with grabbing and touching and anything. Why put yourself at a bigger disadvantage not doing what the rules, not doing what you're supposed to do? Like, to me, it's mind-boggling to me to do that. And that's what frustrates me the most when it comes to that, because those are things you can control. You can't control if the ref throws the flag. You can't control those kind of things. You can control, hey, if I have B gap and the guard pulls, I go to C gap, go to the C gap. Not, oh, I see B gap, but I see the running back running right, so I'm going to go to the running back. Oh, too late. That's a touchdown. Like, those things are what frustrates me the most, because you can control it. And I think that's just a lack of – I always say it's a lack of want to, because if you wanted to do it right, you would do it, So, yeah, my rant's over. I feel better, but, again, it's just – I did not feel like we should have lost this game. I think the defense did not play sound football, which put us in the predicament, which in turn puts Timmy feeling like, okay, the defense can't stop a nosebleed. Now I have to play superhero football. That's the last thing you want to do, with a young quarterback. And I'm going to be honest, you don't want to do that with any quarterback. You want the quarterback, a young guy, a guy to be like, hey, our defense, if we can't get it done, our defense will get it done. That was, to me, the beauty of 2017. Now, did we always get it done? At the end of the day, yeah, but we gave up, touchdowns, things like that. But we got it corrected, and that's the thing that, I want them to do, is just go get it corrected. So now, again, it's Monday. It's a new week. We're coming to Baylor. The best thing we can do is, hey, we clean up the tackling. Best thing we can do is, hey, we're playing our keys of football. Because guess what? Baylor's going to come out and watch that film and be like, UCF doesn't play sound football. Let's just run the same stuff. It's a copycat league. That's all football is. It's a copycat league. Rant's over now. Officially over.
All right. So we've heard this 3 times now. Are you sure that you've got it all out?
Rant's officially over. I'm good now.
All right. He's taking his water break. Okay. So I'm just going to add a few things to all of that. Right. One, there were a few bright spots. Okay. Jason Johnson, 12 tackles, 12 solos. Dude played like a beast as one of our linebackers. We got, I don't think I have it in front of me how many batted passes, but I think we had 4 or 5 batted passes in this game. So this wasn't a small quarterback. This is a P5. He's like 6'3" or something quarterback. and we batted his passes down. That's pretty solid. Lee Hunter, 6 tackles again, number 3 tackler, 6 tackles, 4 solos, 1 pass. Oh, here it is. Passes defended. We got 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 4. I was right. Okay. So, and those weren't cornerbacks with the passes defended. Those were linemen that were doing that, right? So they're getting in their lanes. They did it last week too, so I'm hoping they keep that up. Got another interception this week, which was also good. Where we absolutely sucked was tackles for a loss and sacks. Got 1 sack this week, Tremont Morris-Brash. Tackles for a loss, 2. We've been averaging 8, right? That's 8 plays. And if, a third of those are third downs, you've stopped 3 drives. You know what I mean? So it's something where we played pressure. We stuck our guys in zone. We have linebackers that, for whatever reason, we're not situationally aware of what was going on some pretty fundamental football. Nakai Martinez played well. He had 6 total tackles, 5 solos. That's not easy to do. 5 solos means solid tackling. Walter Yates, he had a couple of good plays. He had a lot of them where he was just out of position. He looked lost out there. And I don't know why. He was another one that was having some challenges tackling. But, dude, you can't be lost at this stage of the season. And I will tell you, that's the one place we're missing beef is linebacker. Yeah. So we've got a lot of thin linebackers. So
they're finesse guys.
Yeah, they're finesse guys. They're speed backers, right? Mm-hmm. And so guess who they were picking on, right? Yep. And then, like we said last week, what were they going to do? They were going to go to their tight end, and they were going to run the ball. That's exactly what they did.
Yep. And that's the type of runs they were doing as well. It's when you're running gap power, you're saying, hey, linebackers, y'all are going to have to get downhill, get nasty, put your nose in the play. We're not going to run outside to where you can use that speed because that's where we have advantage. Our linebackers are athletic. They can run. So we're going to get downhill and make you play physical football. That's how you combat speed linebackers. You get right at them.
In addition to that, though, they were using those tendencies against our DNs. Mm-hmm. One, the DNs were really close in. And we were seeing a lot of blitzes that were overrun, right? Mm-hmm. They were overrunning their lanes. Because of that, they got loose. So again, I'll say there was a few bright spots. We were playing well enough to win that game through the third quarter after getting punched in the mouth initially. They got a series of stops. When those 2 penalty downs happened and gave them that touchdown, that's where the defense really got hit in the mouth again. Mm-hmm. So, gentlemen, Josh or Alan, anything you want to add to that defensively?
I mean, Trade nailed it. So, not much else to say. I think the defense, like you said, lost us the game. We did not get enough pressure on the quarterback. Yeah, like you said, tackles for loss. Tremont Morris-Brash, the whole team had been crushing it up to this point in that stat department there, and we didn't get it done. And there was too many dumb penalties, which we'll get into. I mean, we had 4 major penalties on defense, 10 in the game. That's pretty much it. The linebackers, I think that's where you really notice there's just not a lot of depth there. I mean, it's like they're playing essentially Johnson and Yates, Ryan Davis and the other dude from Washington State that transferred in. I mean, we don't have any depth at linebacker. I don't know. They're not playing any of the young linebackers they've gotten, like Cam Moore and some of these, Troy Ford and some of these guys. They're just not playing them. So whether they trust them, maybe not. But some of those guys are bigger guys. They're just inexperienced. So, I think that's where we saw a big part. The secondary didn't play well outside of Thornton's interception. The D-line didn't bully like it's been doing the last few games. So, enough said there for on my end.
All right.
I just say one of my keys from last week was our D-line versus their O-line. Nope. I just didn't do it. it didn't do it. It's interesting. We had a couple weeks where there was my keys actually played right and were factual. When we don't do those things against Villanova, it's one thing, right?
Hold on. No. Villanova.
Listen, when we don't do it against Villanova, it's one thing, but you can't make this many mistakes. And to me, if you want to flip the positive side, we made a lot of mistakes and still were within the game for most of the game. So
that's what's frustrating too. That's what's frustrating about it.
We lost that game in the last 8 minutes. That's where we lost.
It would be so much different if we're making these mistakes and we're just getting blown. Like we look completely outmatched.
Yeah,
you're just like, okay, like listen. They were the better team. It's obvious. But when you're like, you can make 100 mistakes and we're still in this game with 7 minutes to go, you're down 13 with the ball. It's like, guys, we're killing ourselves. Man. Like, this is a different game.
Yeah. And so, again, Trey, 100% right. And there was just like lots of these little death by 1,000 cuts is kind of where we were at.
All right, cool. So now that we've gotten all of that out of our system, I'm going to ask one more quick question. I'll do quick on that because then we've got to get to Alan's oxymoronic fun stats. So let's ask this question really quick. How do you guys think Timmy does? Does Timmy can he win games like that, and does he rebound?
Yes, I think Timmy played pretty well. I mean, I saw some of these deep throws he was making. I'm going to be honest, I haven't seen JRP. The ball jumps out of his hand, like out of his arm. He has a little bit more.
His left wrist. It's weird.
Yeah, it is, but the ball is just like it's like a rocket. Boom! It just jumps out of his hand, which. Those are the kind of things you notice that while JRP, he throws a good deep ball, it doesn't jump out like that. Like Timmy can make some deep throws and he's very good at that. It's just, again, it's the mental part. And I think that's the step that I thought I was seeing with JRP was mentally, he was taking that step to be a quarterback and not be just a guy who's getting the ball every play. Like there is a difference in playing quarterback and being a quarterback. Like there's a very big difference in that. And I think that's where Timmy lacks. So you're going to see a lot of those splash plays, but the things like we were talking about earlier where it's like, dude, just throw the ball away and live to see another down. We're going to have to live with those of him trying to be a little bit too superhero ball with it. But I do think, I think he played well enough to win the game. At the end, it kind of got away. But I think throughout 3.5 quarters, he made some mistakes. That's a part of it. I thought he played good enough to win. And again, this is the defending Big 12 champs. If you can be in the game with them, I think every game we should be in, going forward.
All right, Alan.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't, Timmy made mental mistakes. The moment got too big for him. He didn't use his feet to his advantage when he's clearly an athlete and can do that, but he froze. And like you said, he was baking cookies back there and still had enough time to evade some of that stuff. And he made, and, maybe like you said, K-State came with the gamemanship, but he's got to still manage the play clock a little bit better. I know that was maybe all his fault, but he, there was some mistakes there. But once again, I thought he played well enough to win. I mean, it wasn't like he was awful. He only had one turnover in the game. So he protected the football. He played pretty well. And but the thing that I was most encouraged by is that it feels like he can play a lot better. Right. Yeah. So to me, it's like, oh, this wasn't his ceiling, or this wasn't like, oh man, this is the best we're ever going to get out of him. Like, you felt sometimes with like Keen's, like, I don't know how much better when he was at least with us. Now he seems to be killing it at Fresno, but Keen has a higher ceiling than this. And I think it's just going to take more reps. Like he's started his first 2 games for the first time. It's the first time he started, back-to-back games since 2021. So he'll get there. I'm still confident in him. I think to this point in time, I'd probably still rather have JRP, but I definitely feel very confident in a backup quarterback who can be competent, and he will get better as he gets more reps under him.
All right, Josh.
Quickly, we had a backup quarterback, one that has played games, and we were still in the game, right? There are a lot of things that I think he'll improve, game 1 to game 2 improvements. Villanova doesn't count when it comes to that type of stuff. This is 50K plus, really, really loud. You're down, but you have a shot. And I think the next time that happens on the road, which we might see at Kansas again. And
that's a good football team too.
Yeah, it's Leopold's doing amazing stuff there. I think he's going to have a different reaction. There still might be some of that Superman type of play, and I get it. And it took a long time to get JRP out of all of that, and he still got hurt. So I think this is going to be a learning experience. I do still trust Timmy. I think he's going to improve upon that. And if Timmy is the man next year, he's getting a lot of real road learning experiences that he can use for the next year too. Even when JRP comes back, takes over the team, and does what JRP does. So yes, I trust him. I think he's going to make a big leap from last game to Baylor. And really, I think the test of his leap is going to be back in the state of Kansas again in Lawrence in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
All right. Well said, gentlemen. Appreciate the insight. Well, I think it is that time. I'm going to put Alan on center stage here. I got to make sure I bring up his banner here because this is all him. It is time for Alan's Oxymoronic Fun Stats of the Week with our very own Smarty Pants with a Z, Alan Levin. Take it away.
Can I get like some sort of like jingle when this goes on?
Yeah. Oh, you'll get a jingle. You won't like the jingle, but you'll get one. It'll be like an ice cream truck or something.
Yeah,
All right, so go for it. Don't have too many stats today. Just found kind of two.
Hold on. I just built that up for like a solid 30 seconds. And the first thing you say is, I don't have that many stats.
I wanted to have, like, interesting ones, like harder to find ones, so that's kind of why I went this route. But all right. So some of them are kind of on the negative side. So UCF's rushing yards from this past week against Kent State was the lowest amount of rushing yards we've had since the bowl game against Duke, when we only had 128 yards. Then Kansas State in the game had 36 first downs. That was the most first downs they've had against a Power 5 opponent since before the year 2000. So I had to keep searching, and by the time I got over 20 years back, I stopped searching. That was the most first downs they've had against a Power 5 opponent in at least in 23 years, if not more. So found that to be interesting. Then Timmy McLean, through 2 games now, has 585 passing yards. That is the most passing yards in a UCF quarterback's first 2 starts of their UCF career since DG in 2019, when he had 592 through his first 2 starts, starting with the FAU game and then whatever the game he started after that.
Let me add one to that. 70% of the snaps have been played by backup quarterbacks for UCF since Mackenzie Milton went down. 70%.
It's crazy. Well, did they okay. Makes sense. Okay, I was gonna say, did they consider Keene a backup? But I guess because he replaced.
He was the backup.
He replaced the injured quarterback. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So those were my main stats, and then one other thing, at least somewhat positive here, is that despite UCF rushing for about 100 yards less than their average against Kansas State, they've only dropped to number 3 in the country. So we're still top 3 in rushing yards in the country.
So did you get any Baylor stats for this week or no?
No, I don't have any Baylor stats. Sorry. I went all UCF.
Man. All right. Why don't you go ahead and jump into the PFF stats now too?
Okay, cool. All right. So this week, our PFF, let's start here with defense. So as we know, the rankings that we have, 90 and above is elite, 80 to 89 is great. My screen just went down. 70 to 79 is good. 60 to 69 is of average to above average. 50 to 59 is below, and 49 and below is poor. So this was our second lowest defensive score. We had a 70.9. Our lowest was against Boise State. All right, I'll do what I did last week. Anyone want to take a guess at who had the highest defensive grade on the team?
I know that. Johnson.
Okay.
I'll say Thornton.
Okay.
Lazar?
Johnson. Yeah, Johnson. Same. Yeah, it's I think we said it at the same time.
All
okay,
good. All good guesses, but wrong. The highest was safety Gyro Wilson, who had a 75. Jason Johnson clocked in at number 2 with a 73.5. Corey Thornton actually was kind of middle
in the
pack.
50s, wasn't he?
He was in the low 60s, Corey Thornton.
Yeah.
So he had an okay game. Nakai Martinez came in at 3rd. My guy Matthew Alexander came in 4th, and John Walker rounded out the top 5. They were all in the 70s. Everyone else was below 70. For defensive end, Malachi Lawrence had the top score. Defensive tackle, Matthew Alexander. Linebacker, obviously, Jason Johnson. Safety, Gyro Wilson. Brandon Adams had the top cornerback score with a 70.
He played really well this game.
He did.
Like, if you wanted to see a cornerback, and he's got size.
Yeah, he's a big boy.
He's tall, and he's got mass to him. I think they said he was like 6'2" and like 213 or something like that.
Yeah.
That's a cornerback. That's an NFL size quarterback.
Yep. And the pressure tracker, which is a combination of sacks, hits, and hurries. Tremont Morris Brashall, they were with 3. Lee Hunter had 2, and then a bunch of other guys had 1. So then from an offensive standpoint, this was our lowest graded game by far. We ranked out as a team at 65. Our previous low was Kent State at 75. So we dropped by 10 for by far our lowest output from PFF score. All right, who wants to take a guess at the highest? Probably pretty easy.
Go ahead, Josh. I jumped in last time.
I know. I'm assuming it has to be Kobe.
Okay.
That was my guess, Kobe Hudson.
Yep, I'm going to make it a trifecta of Kobe. I'm going to make it a tri-tip.
It was
Kobe tri-tip. Oh, no, that's my dad joke of the week, guys.
Boom, boom, boom. So, Kobe was by far the highest. He was the only player on UCF that had a ranking of over 70. He was at 77.5, so he actually almost ranked as a great game. Then we had a bunch of guys in the 60s. Johnny Richardson was number 2. Randy Pittman, who started in place of the injured Alec Holler in his first ever start, got a 65 for number 3. RJ was at number 4, and then Xavier Townsend was number 5. Timmy McLean, where is he on here? Did he not qualify or something? I'm not seeing him on here for some. Oh, no, I'm sorry. So Timmy McLean was second last, and he ranked with a 50, which almost qualifies as a poor game.
Almost?
Yeah, it does. So unfortunate for him. Marcellus Marshall had another great game. This is his second straight game where he ranked over an 88 for pass blocking, so he's filled in real nicely. Amari Kite, the Alabama transfer.
Let's pause there. The difference for Marshall is that he's playing in his natural position.
Yeah.
He wasn't the first few games, but they moved him back to his natural position, and he's playing a lot better there than he was.
Yep. So he ranked out really well. Amari Kite, the Alabama transfer, was the top run blocker, but the run blocking as a whole did not rank very well. Timmy McLean, overall passing grade was a 48.4, which is obviously is poor. But then when you take a deeper look, when he was kept clean, he scored really well. Under pressure, he ranked for at 25. So he did really bad under pressure. When he was not blitzed, it wasn't much better. And when he was blitzed, it was also awful. And then for his passing, On deep balls, he did pretty good. He was 3 of 4 for 135 yards and 2 touchdowns, which rated out as an 88. So almost excellent for his deep ball. Medium, he was 2 for 4 for 29 yards. Short, he was 6 of 7 for 76 yards. And behind the line of scrimmage, he was 4 of 6 for 43 yards and a tossing touchdown. Johnny Richardson had the top rushing grade. And then wide receiver grades, Kobe ranked the top, but interesting. RJ Harvey, technically, he's a running back, but he got the top receiving grade at 82.1. He did have that receiving touchdown in the game. So that rounds out the PFF grade. So the offense had its worst game on paper, but I think we all still felt pretty good about the offense.
Well, the other thing too, with Timmy, he's got to work on his short game. He threw 2 of them in the dirt again this week. So, that short yardage behind the line, type of play, he's got to get a handle on that. So, all right, Alan, did you have anything else for us?
Nope, those were your stats of the day.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and move Mr. Lazar to center stage.
Okay.
For his segment, and Josh's segment, as I get this banner up here, is Josh's sometimes funny fact of the week, but we're going to add a plus on this one because he did hit me up in the private chat to show up Alan and said, I Baylor stuff. So I'm assuming that means that he has Baylor stuff that he wants to talk about as far as stats are concerned.
Kind of. Okay. So kind of. Well, we have really one thing in common at this Baylor game, right? And that is David Arranda, right? So David Arranda and UCF, met pretty recently. It was the end of our 25-game win streak. It was LSU. The wonderful LSU game that I'm being sarcastic about, where we made some players.
Well, it was wonderful until we knocked out Joe Burrow.
Yes, that's fair. And there was also one really bad 15-yard penalty that kind of took the momentum out of the beginning of that game too. So, fun fact, 13 players were on the scoring summary from that game, from the last time UCF faced Arranda. How many of those 13 players have scored points in the NFL since that game? We're going to do number and then name.
Wow.
Bro, are you serious right now? That you got to give us a little bit of the ability to prep to at least pull up the roster from back then.
You have talked about multiple of these players during the podcast already.
Wait, so how many of Dave Aranda's former?
Nope.
How many of ours?
Nope. How many of both? There were 13 people that scored in that game.
Oh,
in the Fiesta Bowl, you're saying?
In the Fiesta Bowl, 5 of them have scored points in the NFL.
Oh, okay.
Jamar Chase.
Jamar Chase.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Justin
Jefferson.
Jefferson.
I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about the Baylor Fiesta Bowl.
Justin Jefferson.
2.
Gabe Davis.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Terrence Marshall.
Nope.
Who else?
But what do you mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire?
Burrow. Yeah, Burrow.
There's one lower.
You said Gabe Davis. We already said Gabe Davis.
Yep.
Who is on that Trey Nixon?
There's one big one that you're probably going to kick yourselves if you miss.
Obviously offensive. Is it on UCF?
I gave you a hint.
What's the hint?
Yeah, I missed it too. He's like, he gave us a hint.
You're going to kick yourselves if you miss it.
Matt Wright. Boom! Let's go.
Matty Ice. Yep. Matty Ice. And amazingly enough, there actually were more than half of those 13 people who scored who were on practice squads or were trying out. Like there's more than just those 5. But I looked back and I was trying to find some type of tie-in. I'm like, wow. I mean, you have Justin Jefferson killing it on a whatever team right now. 2 of those people are playing live while we're recording this. Gabe Davis is now a captain on the Bills. Matty Ice should be kicking in the NFL at this point. I don't, you only have 32 options.
He keeps floating around. Yeah, he does. Well, his problem is not kicking field goals.
It's kickoffs.
It's kickoffs.
But Josh, did you say the beginning that they had to have scored in the Fiesta Bowl and also?
No. Well, yeah, they scored in that Fiesta Bowl and they scored points in the NFL.
Alan's trying to argue the stats guy versus the fact guy. This is interesting.
No,
it's a showdown. He's just mad he didn't have any Baylor stats. That's what it is.
No, I'm just wondering because Clyde Edwards-Helaire has scored in the NFL, but he didn't score in the Fiesta Bowl.
But he didn't score in that Fiesta Bowl. Okay, yeah. There's definitely, and there's like the LSU's kicker was Cody. I forgot the name, and was one of the best LSU kickers, and didn't make it in the NFL. Like there's. McCray scored, but he never made it.
Wasn't there something like 17 of the players that played in that game for LSU ended up like going to the NFL?
Yeah, we're not even talking about Arranda's defense. I mean,
golly.
Yeah. So
shout out Greg McCray too. He's balling up in Canada right now.
Yeah, he's scored in the CFL.
Yes, but not in the NFL. Yeah, and I mean Otis Anderson scored a 2-point conversion.
Go Tigers.
Hey, Josh, another gun we could have done is, since we're playing Baylor, how many players from the 2013 Fiesta Bowl from UCF and Baylor have scored in the NFL?
We could do that too. Maybe I can try to get that in the overtime.
Because Alan thought it was the first Fiesta Bowl. Now he's trying to bring it in and like, we could have done this.
No, because we're previewing Baylor, so I thought it automatically registered as Baylor in my head, and then I heard Jamar Chase, and then I was like, okay, we're talking.
I was trying to get the Arranda side to it, but yes, I definitely could do that, and if you give me enough time, I'll make it happen.
Speaking of Arranda, I watched his presser today. I could not play for that man. He sounded like. I don't know. Like, I think I made a comment earlier today, like, is he Vulcan? Because it was just like completely monotone, and he's getting ready to like put you in a mind meld. He's like, relax. It's okay. He just talks like this. I don't know what's going on. I mean, yeah, we got to look at that. And then like, thank you for the question after every question. It's like, I know he's polite.
Yeah, there's no way he's like that coaching. You cannot coach defense at LSU like that. 1,000% you can.
No, I'm like, what happened? Did Baylor break him?
Yeah,
like you go from Coach O, right, to that guy, and you know, I get it. Baylor, you know, they had some challenges in the past with their coaching staffs that are still generating waves now for members of those staffs that used to be on UCF that were at Baylor, Mr. Levy, who, you know, brings his relatives onto the field at Oklahoma in Oklahoma gear, and Oklahoma has rage. But, you know, I can't imagine him being a head football coach anywhere, unless it was like when Florida State was a women's college. I'm serious, because you can't talk to football players that way. Our women's coaches don't talk to our women's teams that way. Our softball men's team does that. Or softball, like baseball team, you know, you can't talk to players that way. It's like, I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I have no idea. I have none at all.
All right. So now that we're done bagging on Arranda, I mean, I'm not bagging on him. I just don't understand it. It just confused me. Like, my brain broke. I was watching it. I was like, how's this guy a head football coach? Like, he has a good quality name. He's got pedigree. He's done really, really well. I just don't see it. I couldn't play football for him. Let's just put it that way.
If you want, I have the updates on the 2013 team. If you want, I got it for you.
All right, let's do this. Let's take it out of the Josh Sometimes Funny Fact of the Week, and I'm going to leave you up there on center stage, and we're going to slide right into the Week 5 Baylor preview. So for those of us that can actually pop their collars, let's bring that Big 12 energy and pop the collars for the Big 12, our first Big 12 home game against the Baylor Bears.
Okay.
The Bears. The Bears. All right, go ahead.
I'm about to say the Bears aren't doing that great either, so this might be actually
that's good for us. Let's keep that energy going next week, next Saturday.
Let's hoping. So, do you want me to do those stats? Do you want me to just talk about Baylor preview first?
Well, start with the stats and then go to the preview.
So, Baylor, Baylor is okay. So we have, let me count this out. We have, I think, 4 people that played in the 2013 Baylor game that have scored points in the NFL. There are 4. So
Bortles, Rashad Perriman.
Yep.
Storm Johnson.
Yes. Good job.
Nice.
Only one more.
Baylor.
Scott, is it another? No, not another.
Corey Coleman.
Receiver.
We said Perriman.
Is it a UCF player?
It is not. I got to throw it up there.
Bryce Petty.
Bryce Petty. That's it.
Nice.
4. Yeah, Jordan Johnson got a couple. Of course, Perryman has 2. Bortles we all know about. Petty had a pretty decent.
Man. Speaking of Storm Johnson, that guy would have went so much higher in the draft had he not messed up right before the draft. Allegedly.
Yep.
Allegedly. We're only, anything like criminal on this show, we're always going to say allegedly.
Allegedly, yes. It's surrounded by attorneys. So, yeah. I mean, he played 6 games, still had 2 touchdowns, and had 3 yards of carry. It wasn't that bad for Jacksonville, but, it's, that is kind of, I think he's going to see
a lot
too.
Of people, there's already not a lot of people can say they played in the NFL. That list gets even shorter about scoring.
Yeah.
So props to him.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was another. So that Fiesta Bowl was also stacked too. So
all right. Let's move on to the Baylor preview.
Yeah. So this is going to be an interesting game. And I have so many things down here. Do you want to do poison? Do you want to do keys, or just flat out thoughts?
No, we're doing the preview right now. So what are your thoughts? What do you think is going to happen? The game we'll go later.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the interesting part. Like, Baylor has lost to top 25 teams. Like, they're losing to Utah and they're losing to Texas. Most teams, if not all, I won't say all, but most teams are probably going to lose to them. They also lose to Texas State. And I watched some of that game, and they didn't look good. But in a first game of a season, sometimes you just don't look good, but you're Baylor, right? And you have Arranda, and you shouldn't be giving up like 30, 40 points to Texas State. You just
pause there. Let me put a qualifier around that.
Okay.
They did have 7 players out, and most of them are coming back this game against us. Of course. Right?
Do you still, like, maybe I'm just letting Texas State a little bit. Do you still think that they should have been that tight and then lose?
They had 3 cornerbacks last week on the entire team that they could dress. 3 cornerbacks.
Okay, that makes a difference. That does make a difference. So, and they blew out Long Island University. Shout out to Long Island. My guy is still in the middle of Long Island. That will never get out of my accent. So here's the thing. And I think last week was a litmus test. And I think we know who we are. I'm not sure who Baylor is. I've seen them play a couple of times, and sometimes they look like their hair is on fire and amazing. And sometimes they look like, what are you doing? And that's why this game is kind of interesting. I'm glad we had the game last week to kind of see and feel who we are. I'm glad this is at home. It's still Baylor, so the sun and being in the heat and at a midday game is not going to affect them, or shouldn't. But I just don't know what to expect. Like, I will get into the keys and whatever. I'm not sure what to expect, because I don't think we've seen them against a game of our level. We're not Texas State. No offense to them. We are not Long Island University. You can offend them all they want. It's LIU. We're not Texas.
But is Texas really back?
I'm not there yet. They need more. They're also another one that needs some more competition. But they're solid. I think yours is solid. I mean, Utah is solid. We can be solid, right? So I think you have this UCF team that put up a really good fight against a really, really good team who will be back in the top 25 probably in a week. and maybe shouldn't even have dropped out. We have Baylor, who held their own against Utah, which is a top 25 team. And then in the middle, we have all these weird games where Kent State, good, but we should beat them. Villanova, good, but we should beat them. Boise State on the road, that was a hell of a win. So I just don't know what to expect. What I do think is going to happen, I won't get to the keys, but I do think between home field advantage and bad taste in our mouth and us fixing the things that we should fix, I feel pretty confident as a fan. I'm hoping the players do too. But as a fan, I feel like we have the things, forget the line, we have the things in place to correct, to fix, and to win our first Big 12 game. I do.
All right, cool. Actually, let me go ahead and I'm going to bring Alan in here because he looks super excited to talk about this game.
I was actually just reading some stats so I could have some stats about Baylor.
Oh, okay. All right. So do you want me to let Trey go first? Is that what you're telling me?
No, we could go.
All right, he's ready.
We're doing it live.
He's ready. Alan is ready.
You want to talk about some interesting stats. So the Baylor Bears, and like Josh said, do they have an identity? Well, first of all, they kind of have a little bit of an identity crisis at quarterback. They've used 3 different quarterbacks this year. The one that's basically thrown the most passing attempts, he's completing 49% of his passes.
Yikes.
And his average, yard per pass is 6.7 yards. He has 1 touchdown and 4 interceptions, and he's been sacked 6 times. So he's not good. Then their second quarterback there is doing a little bit better he's completing 67% of his passes, but only has 2 touchdowns. So on the year, Baylor's only thrown 3 passing touchdowns, and it's all been to the same receiver. From running, they're doing okay. They're averaging just 4 yards per carry, but overall, I don't think this offense has found an identity. They're playing essentially 3 different quarterbacks, I guess, kind of Alabama style there. And they're, have not found that identity. And, they were very injured against Texas, but I mean, a 30-7 win against Long Island. Long Island hasn't put up more than 10 points all season, and they still got 7 against Baylor. So, this game, I think Baylor is dealing with injury issues. They are dealing with a quarterback crisis there, but they have not looked good at all on offense, maybe outside of like a 31-point effort against Texas State, at home. So I feel pretty confident about, Timmy getting his groove back in this game. And overall, I think this is, the spread's -9 for UCF. I think it's a very winnable game again for UCF. We're going to have to clean up the mistakes from last week, but I think this is a time where, after the defense didn't play as well as we wanted them to this past week. And like Roger said, with, not getting to the quarterback, not getting those tackles for loss, this is the time to do that. I mean, they've been sacked 6 times in the last 2 games. Their quarterbacks are not playing well at all. I think now would be the time to dial up the pressure and really get to their quarterback and kind of continue those woes for them. But I'm looking for a bounce back performance from the defense mainly. And then I think the offense is going to, do its thing. I don't think Baylor's really shown they're super capable in any area yet. I mean, they just lost 38-6. But, they are getting healthier, but, for this game, but we'll see how it goes. But I think this is a good game for UCF to bounce back.
Awesome. Trey, I'm going to click it over to you. What are your thoughts on this Baylor game?
Yeah, I mean, Baylor is struggling right now. But I'm going to focus it about us. Again, I think if we want to be that perennial top 25 program, the team that we can beat, when you're playing these teams that are reeling, that are, struggling to have a quarterback, struggling to figure out an identity, you need to beat them. You need to put them away. You need to beat them fast. But again, we don't fix those issues. You let, Baylor lurk around and stay in the game, things like that. You're going to be in a dogfight because, again, they're recruiting guys that play Power 5 football, Power 4 now. So it's one of those things where I just think you have to put them away early, let them know, hey, you guys, you're not good right now. I don't know what you guys are going through right now, but let's put them out their misery early. That's what we have to do.
All right. Very succinct preview on that one, Trey. I appreciate that. So I'm going to go a little bit more in depth. That will that you've yielded your time to the,
it's easy.
This representative from the state of Northwest Florida. So it is. I mean, matchup predictor says 86% chance of win. Right now, as I said earlier, they get 7 players back. So we're not playing the same team that the other teams have played. However, I think Alan brought up a good point on the talent that is on the field and how they've performed. So I'm just going to run through a few quick stats that are not as oxymoronic as what Alan's are, right? So, and they're not fun. So passing yards, quarterbacks. Robertson is their quarterback, right? He's had 97 attempts. He's got 647 yards, 1 TD, and 4 interceptions. Timmy McClain, 57 attempts, 638 yards, right? 5 TDs and 1 interceptions. I mean, difference. Yeah, I mean, it's blatantly the opposite, almost to a T, even to the TD to interception ratio. Rushing yards, and I didn't realize that was Timmy's first interception. I thought for some reason he had another one, but I guess not. One thing, ESPN, if you're listening, I know you're probably not, please change the picture of Timmy McClain from his U.S. Cows. Directionally challenged school.
It's still green.
It's still green. Come on, bro. I mean, at least it's not slime, but it's still green. All right, rushing yards. Lead rusher for Baylor. Richardson versus Richardson, right? For our lead rusher. He has 36 carries for 160 yards. Our Richardson, 39 carries, so pretty close there. 289 yards. Okay. Receiving yards. Their top receiver, Jackson Jr., 13 receptions, 223 yards. Hudson, 20 receptions, 463 yards, 2 TDs. Now, it's 10 receptions, and he's almost doubling it up. So it's actually pretty similar per reception, but just the amount of times that this guy's getting open and he's able to catch passes, probably because the quarterback's throwing 40%. It's just the talent is just there should be a big enough talent difference on offense alone that we run away with this one. Yep. 565 yards per game for us, 404 for them. They're only averaging 139 rushing yards versus our 260. Passing yards, there's not that big of a disparity. But on the yards allowed, okay, for pass yards, they're allowing 204.8 yards versus our 188.8. And rush yards allowed 171 versus 158. Now, they played Texas and Utah. Utah was a really close game. It was 20-13. I watched that game. Texas 38-6. I really feel that there is no reason that we should not win this game. And it's at home, and it's our first Big 12 game at home, and that crowd better have that Cincinnati energy when we walk into that stadium.
It's going to.
It's going to be bonkers. Like I have no doubt in my mind that it's going to feel like the bounce house is going to feel like the bounce house felt when Texas came and opened up the stadium before all the structural supports were put on underneath it. It's going to be rocking, right? So
that's going to matter.
What's that?
I think that's going to matter. I think that gives us an even extra edge. Like I said before the season, that I thought we could steal games just from the energy we're going to have at home. And I didn't know Baylor was going to be 1-3, but like I feel like that is literally can will us to a win if it's a closer game or just help towards a blowout because we're going to be so wild in that stadium.
Listen, we average 8 or 9 wins. We've been averaging 9 wins under Gus, right?
Yes, we've won 9 games, 9 wins in both seasons.
Yeah, our home advantage, going back before, well, I guess starting in 2016, right, is a huge advantage. We had a streak going on there for a long time where we were top 2 or 3. People do not. Yeah, people do not win at the bounce house, right? And it's because of the people in the bounce house. So I expect this to be wild. I expect this to be Cincinnati game day energy. I expect nobody to be yelling at people if they're standing up or stomping their feet. You hear me, Night Nation? Don't be that guy. Even if you're in the club area, just don't do that. And I expect it to be loud. I expect it to be fun. I expect it to be a win. And I expect that our defense is going to tee off on this quarterback. So that's what I expect out of this game. And I expect more of a Texas score, a 38-6 type score than anything else.
Are we doing predictions now?
No, we're not quite going into predictions. We still got to do keys to the game. So for me, keys to the game, this game is, and I'll start it off, is the only thing that can limit us is ourselves. Timmy gets a good game to come back. That's not overly tough, but not overly easy to give him a confidence boost back. Gus said this week that JRP was ahead of the curve on the progress that he was supposed to be making. I don't know how much of that is JRP pushing himself because he's losing games and this is his senior year. And him just being overconfident JRP. He's the type who will put himself in before he's fully healed. So I'm hoping our training staff is really sitting him down and saying, hey, whatever this issue is, you're good before you go out there. But yeah, I think the keys to this game for me is the attack that they have. They can pass the ball if they can get the ball out. So pin your ears back, get after the quarterback, take him even more out of his rhythm. I have a feeling that it's going to be a 2 turnover type game for us. We're positive 2 on turnovers. I feel like the linebackers are going to be the key and maintaining edges. We can maintain the edges, funnel them to our front. They don't have a passing game. They're going to be one-dimensional. We don't have to worry about a zone. We can stack the box, especially along the D-line, bring linebackers up, bring safeties up, and just stuff the run and get after the quarterback. I think this is going to be a long game for Baylor. So that's my keys to the game. Trey, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I knocked it over the head earlier. I think defense, Baylor's, they're struggling. I think they're going to look at that game we just played and say, hey, these guys don't play sound defense. Or at least they didn't show it last week. They're going to try to emulate those things. So if we can play sound, play with our eyes, trust our keys, tackle, I think we'll blow them out because I don't think they're good enough to just go and beat us any way else. And offensively, I think, just allow Timmy to get in that rhythm again. I think early on he was in a rhythm, throw a little screen passes, get the playmakers the ball, then take those shots, So that's what I think. I think really it's going to be my issue or my focus point will be the defense. Are they going to show up and rebound from what they just put on film last week? That's the greatest thing about this game, at least right now. You can make up for what you messed up. Those guys struggled last week. Yeah. You can put it all behind you this week, and you can play amazing. And then you build on that. Sometimes you need these games where you get exposed on things you might have gotten away with for 3 weeks just because you're the more talented team. Sometimes you need that, and that could be a blessing. This could be what propels us to a potential Big 12 title. Not want to look too far ahead, but you need those things. So I think that's the key. It's going to be, is the defense going to come out and just read their assignments, play fast, and tackle. If they can do that, everything else will handle itself.
All right. Let's go with Alan Levin. What do you think?
I think for me, this game, this is a great game. I mean, any game is great for this, but this feels like a great game to, get some real big momentum with turnovers. We've actually only won the turnover battle. I know we're +2, like you said, but we've only won the turnover battle in one game all year, and that's the Villanova game. We lost it again on Saturday against Kansas State. But, Baylor is confident. I mean, they've had 6 turnovers, through their first few games of the season here. This feels like a good game where we could take advantage of that. And, I would say the first key is win the turnover battle. Secondly is this feels also like a great game to get back to doing what we do best, which is, running the ball. They've given up 10 touchdowns on the ground through these first few games of the season too. So they're kind of towards the bottom of the country in rushing yards allowed. So this feels like a good game for the run game to open up the pass. And, they're pretty bad at, with their secondary too. They've given up 819 yards through the air, which is about number 60 in the country right now. So their defense seems like this is a good spot for a hot UCF offense to kind of pick them apart. And then, let's, key in on whatever quarterback they do play. They kind of seem out of sorts right now. So for me, it would be, getting after the quarterback. They are not finishing plays. They are not explosive at all, Baylor. So this feels like a good spot for our defense to have a bounce back game. So I think we just got to attack some of these weaknesses we've seen from Baylor through these first, 4 games of the season. And I think we'll be fine. I don't know if it's going to be a blowout. I'm not going to just anticipate a blowout, but it does feel like this could be definitely a double-digit win and something that we should, fairly comfortably, when it comes down to it. And I want to see Timmy also correct his mistakes from last game and show some noticeable improvements.
Awesome. Josh Lazar, what do you think?
So my keys this week are based off of one of the most popular figures in NFL sports this week, Taylor Swift. So my keys are all related to her songs because that is exactly what we need to do. First thing, shake it off. Last week was not what we expected or wanted, but they can't let everything that happened that week come into this week. So the team probably will, but needs to shake it off. Now, a little deeper cut that's from the vault for your Swifties that are listeing to a sports podcast.
Well, clearly you are a Swiftie and you're on a sports podcast. So
yeah,
you don't have to say that.
Listen, my wife is wonderful, and I paid way too much money for tickets in Tampa. Go where nowhere else is. Run. We need to run the ball. Where no one else is would be great too, right? We need to run the ball because we are a run-first offense that sets up the play action pass and RPO stuff. So we need to run the ball. And it's not like we did a really bad job last week. We just didn't do what we needed to. So we need to go where no one else is, and we need to run. Also, it's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. We're the problem. Not me. I don't play. Trey can.
No. I was doing the Star Trek thing because that sounded an awful like going where no one has gone before. That was my Picard impression there.
If maybe I'll do a theme every week, and the next one will be Star Trek and Star Wars. We'll see.
We're closing in on 2 hours here.
I am trying to get through it. You're vamping. So we are the problem, and we need to fix it because that is not an offense to Kansas State. They're a really good team, but we are too when we're not the problem and shooting ourselves in the foot. So my keys of the game, all inspired by Taylor Swift. We need to shake it off. We need to run, and we need to not be the problem.
Well, I think actually you should do it theme because that actually worked out really, really well. Other than the fact that they were Taylor Swift songs, but yeah, we're gonna let you slide on that. If you want to do do we need to make a segment, Josh's Swiftie keys to the game or something like that?
I can't. He has lots of songs, and my wife knows all of them, but I can't do that every week. But I'll figure out something fun.
Okay. All right. Well, I actually think that was pretty cool that you did that. So, all right. Keys of the game over. We'll talk about picking our poison here in a minute. Let's get to something a little bit more, something we show each other here in that brotherly love, but let's talk a little bit about listener love. So I told you guys that, we would call out any positive things that our listeners were throwing there, or, if you guys have some suggestions for us on how to make things better. We didn't get any comments this week, but what we did get is another 5-star review. So, obviously, Josh did put that in, but didn't write a comment so that he didn't have to answer the question whether we wrote that comment or not. But I just want to say I really appreciate you guys doing that. I know we're kind of new show, and hopefully we're providing a lot of value. Now there's a lot of experience here, but it's always it's always difficult when you're putting together 4 new personalities and how we vibe off each other. Luckily, we're friends outside of this. So hopefully that's what's translating into that 5-star review. So thank you to whoever left that 5-star review on Apple. We really, really do appreciate the feedback and the fact that you actually took the time to do that. So for those of you that aren't participating in the commenting or anything like that, leave us comments. We do respond to them. If you look at our YouTube channel, I do go on there and respond to you guys. We appreciate it. We appreciate it when you correct us, because Lord knows in a 2-hour show, I'm going to flub the football here and there. We really want to say thank you. So that's our listener love for this week. Let's do a quick Big 12 recap, key upsets. Alan, what have you got for us there on Big 12?
Yeah, so this week, unlike the last few weeks, which had been very volatile in the Big 12, a lot of unexpected losses, especially ones we didn't expect before the season. This was probably the most boring week in the Big 12. Obviously, almost every team had a in-conference game. The only non-conference game was Houston playing Sam Houston, but every single favored team, as far as like Vegas odds, won their game. So there was 0 upsets this week. Maybe a few surprise scores, but obviously we lost. Then Houston beat Sam Houston. Iowa State beat Oklahoma State. So the Cowboys' woes continue. West Virginia beat Texas Tech. Kansas beat BYU. TCU beat SMU. Oklahoma beat Cincy, but only by 20-6. It wasn't like it was a major blowout. Obviously, Cincinnati couldn't get anything going on offense. But
Dylan Gabriel got roasted this week for his performance.
And he still had 322 yards and a touchdown. So it wasn't.
I know, but he still got roasted. That's their entire offense. They can't do anything else. So he got absolutely roasted by Oklahoma. Yeah, Oklahoma
fans
this week.
Oklahoma.
I like that.
And then Texas beat Baylor. So there was 0 upsets. All the favorites won. So what that left us with is just 3 remaining undefeateds left, which would be Oklahoma, Texas, and Kansas. They are all 4-0. Kansas moved back into the top 20, or moved into the top 25 for the first time this season. They are now 24. So we have only one of the teams that are going to be in the Big 12 next year after Texas and Oklahoma leave that is ranked, but Kansas State is quote unquote number 26. They have the most votes, other votes in that column. So one more win should get them back in the top 25, but we are down to 3 undefeated teams with Oklahoma, Texas, and Kansas. Then Kansas State, TCU, West Virginia, and us are the 3, and BYU are the 3-1 teams, and then everyone else is either 2-2 or 1-3.
Now BYU is a solid team this year, so that was a good win for Kansas. Talk about oxymoronic.
It was a close game.
Talk about oxymoronic, right? As soon as we move to a new conference, Kansas, who is the Memphis of the Big 12 for a very long time, all of a sudden turns it around with Lance Leopold. They are a tough opponent that we have on our schedule coming up. And that is probably going to be a Timmy game as well. So, this week he gets his confidence boost back, and hopefully he'll be ready for Kansas after that. All right. So now that we've done that, we've got our listener love done. We've got our Big 12 recap. Thank you, Alan, for that. It's time for Pick Your Poison score prediction. And then we have one more thing. And then we just have to thank you guys for hanging out with us so long. So we're picking your poison score prediction. Alan, how did we do last week?
All right. So Josh and I both. What was that?
I said L.
Yeah, well, obviously all four of us were wrong because we all picked UCF to win. However, Josh and I both had UCF's number right. We both said 31. I had it 31-28. Josh had it 37-31. So we both got UCF's offensive number right there. Trey had it 27-23 UCF, and Roger had it 32-24. So none of us picked Kansas State to get in the 40s, clearly. But Josh, I think you might have been you definitely were the closest with 37-31. Oh, I'm sorry. I flipped that. You picked, UCF to win. So I was the only one that got UCF's number right with 31. You had 37-31 Kansas State. So I don't know who was closest, but we were all wrong.
I think this week's a mulligan, dude.
Yes.
Because it was
this
week's
can't be right.
We're gonna take a mulligan.
And everyone was like, well, they're not going to score 31. Right?
It's pick your poison score prediction, not pick your poison wins the game and score prediction. Because
then
again, we're none of us, well, except for you, Alan, will pick against UCF. So, you can't.
Well, I didn't pick against UCF, though.
No, you didn't. Not this week, but you said you would pick against UCF.
If I think they're going to lose
against UCF.
Yeah.
Listen,
I got UCF score right.
Listen, everybody, this is not gambling advice. If it's gambling advice, that's a whole different kind of ballgame. We're talking.
That's a whole different score prediction too. We're looking at over unders. We're looking at everything else. So
yeah, exactly.
Right now, all we're doing is we're giving you our score predictions and how bad UCF will beat the opposite team. However, none of the stars align this week. None of them. So there you go. All right. So let's talk about this week. What do we think? We're playing Baylor. Trey, I'm going to start with you. What are your thoughts?
I think this game is going to be a bounce back for us. I think my score prediction will be 38-13 UCF.
Ooh.
Wow. That was
wow.
Okay.
We're all hoping you're right.
All right. I'm gonna go.
No, I have to come up with a whole new score prediction because that's what I was gonna say.
Again? Wow.
Yeah, Trey and I
pick alike.
on the old podcast, it was either Ben and I picking the same number. Like he would pick after me, so he would constantly we got to a point where we'd write it down, and then Trey and I would always be within 2 or 3. So it's but that's okay. I'm going last, so I'll take the asterisk if I need to. All right, go ahead, Alan. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
I'm gonna go UCF 34, Baylor 23.
Ooh, interesting.
Ooh. We're getting close. Am I up?
Yes, you're up.
Sure. I was going to do the actual poison where since I had this theme going, the only poison to me, the only poison in here is if we think Baylor knew they were in trouble when you walked in. We need to just be confident in ourselves. We need to make sure.
For those of you listening on the podcast, my head is buried in my hands covering my face right now.
It's called the theme. This is what people do.
Game of the week.
Game of the week. The reality is what I feel we're going to bounce back. I feel we're going to do that in Bounce House. We're going to have a good game, but I think it's going to be closer than people think because I think we're going to get a Baylor we're not expecting. Not the Baylor that gave up a score to LIU, not the Baylor that lost to Texas State. I actually think they're going to be amped up for this game, and they're going to want to prove that they don't want to go down 2-0 to UCF. So I write this down before all the time, and I had 34-24 UCF. I'm not trying to price this right, you Alan, but I had this written down.
Hey, it's still different. It's still different.
So,
yeah, it is.
The price is wrong, Josh. The price is wrong.
Thank you, Adam Sandler.
I love that movie.
That was great.
So for me, you know what? I'm just going to throw 3 sheets to the wind. I do think that with Baylor, looking at how they stack up offensively and knowing that their quarterback is
Bad.
assuming this is the one of the 3 that they're going to play again, right? Is that bad? I'm going to go out on a limb here and say 42-21 UCF. Ooh. I think that if we can get after that quarterback and make sure we contain the running game, I think we're going to get a lot of possessions back to our offense. And I think Timmy is going to come out and we can run based on the stats for them, and we can certainly pass. So I think Javon Baker gets his groove back because Kobe's kept it. I think we're going to stretch the field a little bit, and we're going to run right over them. So 42-21 UCF is my prediction this week. So
I think we're getting a defensive touchdown this game too. I'm feeling it.
Please.
I'm like,
dude, Braden Marshall had one. All he had to do was catch the ball.
Yeah,
all right. Sure. So that'll do it for our Pick Your Poison segment. And we're right at 2:06, so we're doing well. So just a quick update on our other UCF sports that are playing right now. Number three, highest ranking ever for a UCF team. UCF men's soccer lost to number 1, Marshall.
They're number 1. Wow.
Number 1, 1-0. Next up, we're playing Kentucky in Lexington. They are 3-5 on Friday at 5 p.m. I expect us to win that game. Top 25 RPI, UCF women's soccer beat Houston on the road 1-0, and Kansas at home 1-0. So Oklahoma State has a really, really good soccer team. This is a great women's soccer conference, just like the men's conference, despite it not being the Big 12, is one of the top soccer conferences. So both soccer teams are in top soccer conferences. They will be playing in Stillwater on Thursday night, so that one's going to be a tough one at 8 p.m. And then at Oklahoma in Norman, Oklahoma 6-4-1 on Sunday at 2 p.m. So lots of other sports options for you, and now that they're all on ESPN Plus, you can watch those. UCF volleyball rebounded. They are now 11-2, beat Cincinnati 3-1 Thursday, and then 3-0 last Friday for the sweep. They are playing Oklahoma 6-5 at home this Thursday and Friday at 7 p.m. And that, my friends, besides the fact that it was announced that the Kansas game will be on Fox.
Yeah.
So make sure you're
Big Fox
tuning
Saturday.
in if you can't go to the game.
Big Fox.
Is it Big Fox Saturday?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's going to be a heck of a game.
Yeah.
That's going to be a heck of a game with a lot of eyeballs. And we all expect it to be a heck of a game. We've been talking about Kansas this entire season. They had a quarterback got hurt last year, so they were playing the backup. And so that kind of derailed their season. But they're a good football team. And it's going to be I don't know if this is our first game on Fox, but it's our first game on Fox as a Big 12 banner on Big 12 Saturday. So let's do it. Super excited, but let's get in the bounce house. Bring your Big 12, beat Baylor, big energy, stomp your feet, jump around. Make sure to like and follow us on YouTube. Listen to our content on any of the podcast channels that you have. And most importantly, go Knights. And charge on,
baby.
Oh my God, you guys. You said this last week. Oh, that was terrible. Let's try that one more time for the kids in kindergarten. All right. Let's bring that big game energy and beat Baylor this week. Go Knights and
Charge on, baby.
All right, there we go. All right. Have a great week, folks.
Did we get the drop from Roger saying "Give it all to me"? Did that happen? I don't know if that happened.